Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and today we are going to be talking a bit about Wayland, but not Wayland on Linux. It's still the same Wayland, just on a different operating system. So I did that video the other day of Wayland on macOS, and today we have a developer who is actually working on one of these projects. So introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Hi, my name is Alex Spaulding. I am a student in computer science, and I am the current solo developer for Wona compositor,
Mhm.
the macOS compositor that you reviewed.
Okay. I thought
So,
you were going to say something more
hello.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was confused about
um,
how to say it. So it is Wawona.
Wona. Yeah, I had to search it up too. I don't know.
I know that, what is
You,
it? Like it's a land? What is it? A forest? Yeah, forest in California or something.
yeah. So you know how Apple makes all their operating systems, some random park in Yosemite or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in California, and then they like, oh yeah, let's do it. So I was just asking my friend Noah, hey, like, what the heck do I name this thing? He said, oh, just choose like any of the counties, just like in California, and it's just like Apple does, and any of them that starts with a W. And I looked at one, I was like, oh yeah, that's it.
Fair enough, fair
So yeah,
enough. There's
yeah,
probably about as much thought as
um,
goes into the Apple naming.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
For me, I
Yeah.
haven't been a macOS user in a long time. I used to use I think the last one I used was probably I'm gonna say the last one. No, first one named after a mountain, whichever one that one was.
Uh,
Mojave? Something like that?
yeah, it might have been Mojave. That's the first one.
I don't know.
No,
What?
no, no. It's been a while. It's
It
probably
has been a
Monterey or
while, yeah.
something.
Like I was
I
like most of my macOS experiences back during like snow leopard, mountain lion, stuff like that.
yeah, I miss those days. Yeah.
So,
Actually,
oh, go on.
I'm a NixOS main.
Mhm,
I love NixOS,
mhm.
and ever since they switched to it in 2023, I've been absolutely infatuated with the Nix ecosystem.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's kind of just where I've been at Headspace. Absolutely enjoying just using different desktop environments and the Nix build system and creating some projects out of Nix.
We'll definitely get into next because that is obviously related to what your project is. But I guess before we get to that, what is it that you're actually building?
So I am building the world's first iOS Wayland compositor,
Mhm.
and that was the main goal. But there are actually several other reasons of why I built this, but basically it's just a Wayland compositor and it runs on different platforms other than Linux.
Okay. I guess why? Why is a good place to go from there?
So we can always run a full desktop environment on uh, DRM and stream that over with some VNC or RDP.
Mhm.
And that's always very fine and good. But when you're on a mobile screen and you want access to your applications, having those vertical bars, like you're watching a full screen, like widescreen movie, and you just get those black bars, it can be very annoying, and it just doesn't match your screen aspect ratio. And I wanted a way to solve that. And I've been using a lot of post-market OS, and I know that there's actually been a lot of optimizations to having these Wayland clients just run directly on a phone screen. So I was thinking, well, we've got like Termux and we can use that on Android, but we need something on iOS. And so I started thinking about how the heck am I going to stream over Wayland applications directly to my phone? And that's when it started.
You mentioned Termux there. I noticed a newer project that came along. Someone has Arch Linux running in a box on Android, so it's just a full Arch Linux experience. I've not tried it myself, but it does seem really cool.
That's awesome. I have also tried some other Termux related things. I
Mm,
was able to get up XFCE running. They actually have different ways to go about it depending on if you can root your phone or not. Just like enhances the speed if you can root.
mm, mm,
Um, but I noticed there's like nothing available for iOS. And actually, uh, I just happen to know a lot about iOS and I know of all of its limitations. Pretty
mm,
much you can't do anything without Apple saying, okay, go ahead.
mm, mm.
So.
So I guess with that in mind, like what limitations are there in place that would get in the way of what you're trying to do here, or maybe help you in some ways?
So it turns out when you want to actually run more than one process, that's not really possible. Pretty much every library you bundle within your application needs to be statically linked.
Mm,
And as a result, you can't really load things like graphics drivers
mm,
or you can't spawn new applications. And this could work if you had your application as a separate application, but that just doesn't do it for me. I want to be able to integrate a full desktop environment on my phone
mm, mm,
and use package management and all that. There's also code signing problems where you end up not being able to run unsigned arbitrary code. And I've also found a way to solve that. Um, but that's like the biggest hurdle that I've figured out. It's definitely possible to get behind. And going forward, I just know that this is something that's going to be side loaded. It's going to work on jailed devices. You do not have to jailbreak to use this.
okay, okay. Because I know that's like I'm not like in the Apple ecosystem at all. Why do people tend to jailbreak their devices? Like, what are people trying to do when they're doing that?
So Apple's very restrictive on the way applications work and behave. And most of the time they want you to go through the Apple App Store, which is only like pre-vetted, like pre-approved applications that work exactly how they behave. And they put every single application into this little sandbox
Mhm,
and they prevent certain entitlements to regular developers. So you can't have access to things like the screen, like frame buffers, VPNs, you have to pay for all that. And there's this really long, extreme, difficult review process. And pretty much everything that would work for Termux on iPhone is just going to immediately get rejected. And so Apple's developers are just going to have to deal with going through that, or they can sideload.
mhm,
And a lot of times there are still limitations if you're not able to jailbreak, and that's when jailbreak comes in. So if you jailbreak your phone, you're able to pretty much do anything you want. You can theme your entire screen. You can like change icons. You can run your own applications from pretty much anywhere. Um, there's this whole idea of code injection. So whatever's running, you can inject certain code and run that arbitrarily. And in many cases, that would solve a lot of Wawona's issues with not being able to run unsigned binaries and stuff.
mhm. I do like the concept of jailbreaking, just like even a thing that exists is like, jailbreaking, as in running software on my computer.
Yeah, jailbreaking has been a thing for a while. I've absolutely been in love with it since its inception, really. I've been using jailbreaking since like 2020 or 2012,
Mm,
with the first device I got, and I actually have a lot of iOS devices just laying around that
mm.
are jailbreakable and also can run Linux. So maybe a project for
Oh,
another day to get
I didn't know
Linux
that was a
going on
thing.
there. Yeah, you can actually get a pre-boot execution environment going and just boot up the Linux kernel just directly. So
That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, there's some work with Asahi Linux as well. They've actually added the device trees for some of the older devices that are able to do that.
Mhm.
And one of my goals someday is to maybe port over some graphics drivers to get on those older devices.
Awesome, awesome. So with Wona, where do
Mhm.
you even I guess where did you start with this project? Where did you approach it from? How did you even realize something like this was going to be possible?
Well, actually, I'm a macOS tweak developer, and I spend pretty much all my free hobby time outside of school and work just making tweaks for macOS. And my biggest aim is always to bring Linux customizations to the Mac. And a lot of people tell me I should just install Linux. And I actually had an older MacBook that didn't have enough storage space to do both Linux and Mac. And because it's an M1, you cannot just wipe macOS directly. There needs to be macOS on there. And because I like Xcode, well, actually, that's a lie. Because I need Xcode to compile for iOS, it requires about 80 gigabytes of storage space. So having just base specs on the M1 Mac of 256 storage space, splitting that in half, I've run out of storage so fast.
Mhm.
So my goals have been, well, let's just figure out how do I bring Linux customizations to the Mac. And I started with some really cool like window customization tweaks, like adding borders and changing colors,
Mhm.
tinting everything, the ability to like change the behavior of how windows behave. I made a tiling window manager at one point, and as some time progressed, I figured out, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could just get Wayland apps running directly on the Mac and integrate them directly into the environment?
Mhm.
And I found all these limitations with using Xcorts. Like you cannot use Linux apps and have them scale with Retina, and because it's using quartz or the Xcorts, um, X11 is not compatible with macOS compositing, so you can't really get tiling
Mhm.
directly. Like you can't just integrate it into the desktop directly. And so using tiling window managers, I immediately found, holy crap, this needs to be solved.
Mhm. Before we move on
So
from that, probably should explain what X Quartz is for anyone who doesn't know about it.
Xcorts is just an X11. Xcorts is just an X11
Server.
backend for macOS. Yeah, server. You can just run your applications directly, or a lot of times there's no native macOS ports of any X11 server
Mhm.
software, and you can't. Like the most I've seen is like Xterm and XIs and some of the sample stuff. But it's
Mhm.
been so long since anyone has ever wanted to use X11 on Mac, so we just don't have anything, and we end up just doing like Linux and then rendering it to the screen directly. And
Mhm.
people complain because their screens are using Retina, and that's basically Mac OS scales everything two times, and then as a result, you have a really large screen, something like 4K
Mhm.
almost, and it zooms in because it's scaled twice as much, and it uses twice as many pixels as it would for every single pixel,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you end up getting a really sharp image, but causes conflicts with font sizes and stuff in X11 or X quartz, and then
Mhm.
you just get blurry font all the time, so it's almost not usable.
Right, right. So it's like
Yeah,
if you really need to, it does exist, but you're probably better off like remoting into into a Linux system and doing it like that.
exactly. Yeah, and I have ran experiments using X quartz, and I thought it was really cool. But for practical application, it's probably just not there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you've experienced any troubles with Xrandar, you know it can be really challenging to troubleshoot and figure out how the heck it's supposed to align with multiple displays. And as soon as you run into that display issue and incompatibilities, you're trying to like tile windows into a screen space that's not even where your displays are aligned, and it's just not fun.
Yeah, I've my layout's always been real funky. So Xrand had always caused me problems. So I run two vertical monitors, but they don't
Mhm.
align at the bottom. So the top of one monitor aligns with the top of the middle. The bottom of the right aligns with the bottom of the right side. So it creates this like I guess yeah, sort of weird setup that just causes like it causes problems. I've
Mhm.
explained why I do this before. Every time that people see it, they get very confused. Um I have my reasons. They're not reasons that make sense for anyone else, but I have my reasons. Wayland certainly made that less less breaky.
Yeah, and so Xcourse is just not able to detect where the heck the displays are and
Mhm.
set it up correctly, and just not render stuff outside of your screens.
Mhm.
Um, you'd lose your windows all the time, and it's
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
not fun. So I wanted to solve that, and I wanted everything to work on the Mac as well.
Mhm,
And so pretty soon, my Wayland compositor for iOS started to be a Wayland compositor for macOS as well.
mhm, mhm.
And when I started this, I was originally thinking, oh, these are just going to be like regular macOS windows. And then I found out you can render client side decoration as well. And that's just kind of trippy.
Yeah, so when you do this on Linux, like everything is sort of built around the fact that this is possible. Like the addition of server side decorations is this additional protocol that most people adopt, but is or most desktops adopt, but is still something that is like core to it. What what happens on macOS here? Do you get like double decorations? Like how do you like get through this situation?
So I just almost constantly get double decorations. I do have a new force server side decorations toggle that you can turn on for figuring out how to just render macOS window only.
Mhm,
And it's really interesting because I have to dig into the protocol and figure out how it works, which I kind of just don't understand right now.
mhm,
Um, it is tricky, but every time I see it and it just renders and behaves like a regular macOS application with macOS title bars and the macOS traffic lights, it's just really kind of trippy to me to see a Linux app rendered directly with a view of the app directly inside a macOS window. It's really just trippy for me.
mhm, mhm. What kind of apps have you mainly been focusing on right now? Because obviously a lot of things aren't going to work on macOS because they are specifically built for
Mhm.
something on Linux. So what has been your main concern?
So I want to bring in nested compositor support.
Hmm.
And to do that, I need to not only make Wona compositor a compositor, but also allow it to run nested compositing. And so I thought, well, the only compositor that I really care about is Sway Effects. And before I even bother, I will just dig into a reference compositor called Weston. And
Hmm.
Weston actually gives you a bunch of built-in like libweston clients. You can just test them,
Hmm.
and you can test for certain backends like OpenGL and stuff. And right now, my main focus is to see if how many of those I can support. Right now, I can get like Weston terminal up and running, and I can pipe it over directly from my Linux machine,
Hmm.
so I don't have to compile it natively. And I did run in some other tests. I was able to get Weston Simple SHM running, and that is basically a CPU-based pixel rendering for Weston Compositor. And all of these I can render either nested inside of Weston or just on their own. And that's something that I find really unique and special about having Wayland on something like an iPhone is you can just run the app as if it was a regular app, and it'll fit the screen and everything.
That's cool. That's cool. So right now, what is kind of the state of things? Like what works well ish? What doesn't work? How much work do you have to do?
So I started over.
Okay.
So right now it's pretty limited. I haven't even tested iOS or Android yet again,
Mhm,
and I am thinking of adding Linux support directly. So we'll just see. I don't want to overdo it because there's going to be a lot on my plate, and the scope is massive. But there's a lot of work that's already been done,
mhm,
and all I really have to do is put it all together.
mhm,
And even though there's a lot to do, we we don't have Vulkan really. We don't have OpenGL. macOS has drivers for OpenGL, and they're deprecated since macOS Mojave. Um, yeah, and Xcort still uses them. So what I really would like to see is like maybe getting some graphics drivers running, and I know there's a few that I'd like to try, such as Cosmic Crisp, and that was one of the things I first tried when I started on macOS was getting Cosmic Crisp driver,
mhm.
and that's essentially like Vulkan 1.3 compliant for macOS by
Oh.
Lunarg.
Yep, yep, yep.
And I tried getting that running on iOS as well, and I have no idea if it worked because I don't know how to test Vulkan. And so the state right now is there's a lot of stuff that really doesn't work.
Mhm.
and I'm kind of focused on getting just like the basics because right now I just fixed keyboard input. You couldn't like type. Um,
That's a problem.
Previously, you could in my C implementation, but I just started over, and everything's in Rust now, the back end. So it's going to take a lot of time, and I have to figure out how to structure this so that it works going forward in a maintainable way.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's kind of a big thing. Like, it's one thing if you're just building some like tiny little project no one cares about, but if you actually want
Yeah.
this to be some big maintainable project,
Mhm.
actually having a sensible structure, like no matter what you do, you're gonna have to restructure things, but you want to try to limit that as
Mhm.
much as possible.
And I did find I am able to use Rust. There's actually a lot less work to do with Rust because a lot of people who are on the Rust Wayland projects, they've already got it compiled for macOS, and I don't have to do any porting there, which is nice. Uh, but there's still like compositing. That's
Mhm,
still like the biggest issue that I am going to constantly run into. Compositing, zero copy, um, how do I get accelerated graphics going? And macOS is kind of just incompatible with most of it. So I got to figure out the best way to translate it over. And in addition, like you can like compile Wayland apps directly and run them directly on a Mac or iOS.
mhm,
And with this Wayland compositor, that's totally possible. You don't need any uh, any native UI to do it. Like you don't need to import Cocoa and all that. But I I I wanna just, like, look at it as well, Wona Compositor is not necessarily just a Wayland compositor.
mhm,
It's not that it's implementation detail, like, I don't wanna focus on that because what I really want people to think about is, what's possible? If I have Wayland on my phone, if I have Wayland on my Mac,
mhm,
what can I do with
mhm,
that? And the answer is, well, if you can just SSH into a Linux machine, you can run anything on Linux, right?
mhm, mhm,
You can port Linux apps directly. If you have the source code, you can just use my Wayland compositor and bam, you can run it directly on those computers. Stuff that's not really been done. But I I just want to like point out we have Android, we have like Waydroid on
mhm.
Linux. Imagine running Android applications on your iPhone. Like there's like just I just want people to think about what the possibilities are. If you really have Wayland running
Mhm.
as if it was native and it works natively like a regular application, what is possible? And
Mhm.
that's when I start going a little crazy. I'm like, holy crap, like I can run Sway directly. I can, I can run GNOME if I wanted to. Like I could get up a whole desktop environment that's usually for Linux, compile it natively for my Mac, and
Mhm.
then just replace the whole desktop environment. That's yet to be done, and I know exactly how to do it, and I'm on the right track for doing so.
Okay. Um, like I know you could obviously like nest it and run it on top of it. Like you're making it sound like you'd actually replace the environment.
hmm you can. And remember how earlier I said I'm into macOS tweak development?
Mm,
This means I typically look into macOS source code without access to the source code, and I have to reverse engineer private frameworks and API. And I end up figuring out how stuff works and how stuff renders and how stuff connects to your display.
mhm,
And
mhm,
there's all sorts of stuff going on. There's behind the scenes on your Mac. So when you boot up your computer, you eventually hit a login screen.
mhm,
And I like to make parallels here. So this is basically your display manager, and macOS doesn't give you any options here.
mhm,
But if you were able to make your own login window, you'd have your own display manager. You could select your own desktop environments. And if you figure out how to log in, you can authenticate users and create a brand new third-party macOS desktop environment that runs on macOS directly.
mhm,
And it just so happens that I have a friend of mine who's been working on this for a few years now, and they just figured out, like just now, how to replace your entire desktop environment, and it bypasses login window as well. So I won't give too many details, but all you really have to do is do a standard Nix run to run. the project,
Mhm.
and you're immediately rebooted into this third-party desktop environment with the login window replaced completely. And that's how I plan
Okay.
to do it.
Okay, that's very interesting. Um, yeah, no, that's actually super cool. So you mentioned Nix there, and I think that's something that everyone will talk about. So you mentioned you also use NixOS. You've said that like Nix is going to be one of the few dependencies the project actually has. Um, why Nix? I guess.
If you install Nix, with a single command, you can declaratively, reproducibly create an entire project
Hmm.
and share it, and it will work everywhere else
Hmm.
without issues with dependencies, without issues with isolation, without polluting your source code with uh, your own forks of projects. And I think Nix is great because you can actually pass in variables. So you have environment variables you can pass in. You can pass in binaries of other packages, for example, to run directly, and it gives a full path to your immutable Nix store.
Mm.
And it's just such a good choice for this project because there's so much going on, and I really only want to include Wona source code in my repo. So when I
Mm.
publish upstream, all you're going to see is a bunch of Rust. You're going to see Objective C. You're going to see some maybe Kotlin going on for the front ends. Uh, but then you're going to see a bunch of Nix and the Nix tooling and Nix modules. And really, I'm trying to simplify it. So all you do is download Nix and you just type a simple Nix run, and it automatically compiles and grabs everything for you, takes the entire source code, creates an executable, and runs it immediately for you.
Mhm, mhm.
And I actually think it's great because you don't have to sit there and type make cario, make, lib input, xkb common, and then just take hours upon hours trying to compile source code by yourself, getting dependencies that don't work on Mac. There's a lot of stuff that's not shipped in Homebrew, and it's just not going to be a good time if I tell you to get all the dependencies by yourself. So
Right.
I think Nix is great because you can even include like packages that are dependencies of Wayland, and then patch them with Nix, and then just compile them directly. And it's so easy. Like for everyone else to use this, it is just the easiest thing, and you're able to compile it directly by yourself without having to try.
It's interesting to hear about Nix from the development side because most people I hear talk about Nix are talking about it from like the convenience of building up like a whole system, the convenience from the user side. But I guess that does
Mhm.
make sense. I've never properly looked into Nix. I've had Nix people on the show before, and every time they explain it to me, I leave the show more confused. 'Cause I feel like a lot of Nix people, they're great at telling you like the Nick specific things that are awesome, but
Mhm.
aren't great at like explaining why that actually works and what makes it cool.
So yeah, I won't dive into it. It's a mess. It's huge,
Mhm.
and it's basically production grade infrastructure, and it's the strongest we've got. And I'd say it's closest to math at that point. It's got the largest package set in the world for any Linux, and I just really appreciate how powerful it gets when you look in terms of automation. With a single command, you could just have a single file that does literally everything for you. And that's not to say there's a lot of heavy work going on the back end, because there definitely is. But it basically is a language, a functional language, and it describes how to compile tools and applications. And that's basically all it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you don't have to do it yourself.
Well, you got to do
Yeah.
it once. You got to make the language. You got to put the language together to make it do it, and then it works forever.
You can package these, what they're called derivations,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you package them upstream to the Nix package monorepo. And once you get all the dependencies of the application that you need up there and maintained, you can actually call them as inputs to your software when you package your software to upstream. And it makes it very clean and very organized and very neat, and really just straightforward when you're looking at it from a developer's perspective.
I would assume basically everything you would need would have already been in Nix.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So that's the issue. There's always going to be stuff that's not there that you need to package yourself, and that can take months if you don't know what you're doing. Um, and so I actually know how to do it, and I plan to make patches to things that are going to be published up to Nix, and I actually have some source code that I need to publish up there so you can run. But that's going to happen a long time from now. Right now, I'm just trying to get everything downstream just by itself
Mhm.
up and running.
Right. So get it all working, and then when you know it's working, then go through the next step of, making it more easily accessible.
Exactly. My goal is just to make it so straightforward. All you do is just run a simple command and it works for you.
Well, I
Uh,
hope that I hope you can I hope you can get to that point.
Yeah. I think I'm there. Xcode is just a big pain in the butt. It happens every time. And yeah, I said I like Xcode, but that was just a complete lie.
What makes Xcode annoying? Because I've used it a little bit in the past, but for nothing serious.
So I'm a Linux nerd, and everything is just usable on Linux. And as soon as you try and do the Apple ecosystem, you can't compile for anything without having Xcode, which is kind of true. But it's also not, but it is.
Mhm,
It's the whole infrastructure that Apple provides you
mhm,
to run, compile, run, and configure and set up everything. But they're so strict again, like I said, it's like a jail for iOS and all these other platforms that you can compile to.
mhm,
And you end up having to set up code signing. Code signing means you have to actually have an Apple entitlement or like a Apple certificate to get going, and that usually costs $100 a year. And I'm trying to do it without that.
mhm.
But if you did have one, you could actually theoretically just use some other third-party code signing tools, which I don't have access to. And I know that people aren't going to have access to that, so I'm constantly working around Xcode.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
is a
that
pain.
makes sense.
It takes up 80 gigabytes, even if it doesn't use 80 gigabytes every single time. If you don't have 80 gigabytes worth of space to allocate,
Oh.
Xcode won't install, even if it's only like 15.
What?
Yeah, and
Uh
it's just
is it like
annoying. It's
allocating
annoying.
is it allocating like build cache? I don't know why it would need
Well,
that.
I don't know why it would need it either, and we're just not going to go over that today either.
Fair enough.
I think if I learn more about Xcode, I'll learn to appreciate it. But right now, it's just very confusing. So,
No, that's
I
that's
also
that's fair.
I also just appreciate like I could just like build something and run it, and that's like the power of Linux, and I really just like that. So
What a crazy power to have.
I would really like to talk about the LLMs and the usage of AI in my project.
Okay, I was gonna get to that at some point, but yeah, we can go right into that now if you want to.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Where do you want to start?
Uh, okay, so I started this I started this project in November, okay?
Okay.
And I started it as like, does this even work? Like, can I get a screen printed
Mhm,
to my screen? Like a Wayland surface. Can I render that to macOS
mhm,
and or to iOS? And it just so happened that if you use AI, you can get it done in a weekend. So I made my first Reddit post. Oh, I got Wayland on macOS in a weekend.
mhm,
Well, what did you do? uh, I do have to do the disclaimer. I used a lot of AI there.
mhm,
I'm a student. I'm still learning how to program. I am still learning C, and I'm still learning Objective C and the macOS platform and all the macOS frameworks and ecosystem and how they work over here.
mhm,
And using AI is going to really push forward this project until we reach a point where it just kind of works everywhere. And
mhm.
that comes with the added bloat that happens every time you use AI. And I am about $1,500 deep into this project of my own money, and I'm releasing it for free for everyone to use and check out the open source code
Mhm, mhm,
because I believe in FOSS. Um, so I just want to mention that I know a lot of people are going to be upset when they hear that I've been using AI. Um, but again, like I'm one person, and I just want you to not think about implementation detail. I really want your viewers to think about this as what is possible. What
mhm,
can I run on iPhone? What can I run on my Android phone? What can I run on macOS? None of it was possible before,
mhm,
and now I'm making it possible with or without AI. Like I want this to happen today. I don't want to wait till someone else does it
mhm.
because chances are no one's going to do it for iOS, and that's just going to be something that I pour my heart into. So,
You said you're a student. How old are you right now?
so I'm 26 right now. Oh,
Oh, okay.
uh, yeah, I'm
Sorry, I
26,
thought you were younger
and
when you said that.
no, I'm trying to get out of here by 2027. We'll see how that goes,
Mhm.
but really, like I'm busy,
That's fair.
and
That's fair.
this is my hobby. But ambition wise, if I can't get a job, I really want this to be what I do. I
Mhm,
really want to make Wayland available for Mac and just be the pioneer for all of this. And I hope I can get some funding for such a thing. But
mhm,
right now, it's just however it goes forward, whether people support me or not. I just want it done.
mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when did you start learning the program?
Uh, well, probably 2023, probably
Oh, okay.
2022,
So
something
very
like that.
recently. Okay.
Very recently, yes. I am very, very new to programming and I'm still learning.
Mhm. So you.
But
Oh, gone.
I'm creative and I'm very creative and very ambitious and things like this don't really worry me for hitting that roadblock when you're doing programming and you find something that is super massive in scope and you can't finish. I'm
Mhm.
gonna finish this.
No, the reason I ask is because you've started at a very different time for a lot of the people who watch this channel. Like most people who watch
Mhm.
this channel, they started like, years before AI was even remotely usable for anything like this. Like, yeah, obviously, we've had machine learning systems since long time ago, but the modern LLM is, whilst it's theoretically existed for a long time, the hardware wasn't capable until very recently. So your experience learning to program is very different, and the kind of resources that are available for you are very different to what a lot of people who watch this have had in the past. So what is that actually like? I guess it's hard to compare it because you don't know what it was like beforehand, but what has your experience been like learning to program with all of these AI tools available? And how have you used those as you've been like learning and developing as a programmer?
So the type of software I like to write and the type of software I can write, those are very different things.
Mhm,
And I use AI to help me in all sorts of ways. The biggest example is I don't have access to Apple source code.
mhm.
I can't.
Oh, we DC'd for a second. Discord. We. My camera's frozen. I don't know if you can hear me. If this is my side. Okay. Oh, the entire Discord window's frozen.
Renders as the type of stuff that I want to make.
Sorry, I lost you for like 30 seconds there. Oh, we did it again. Oh god, Discord's. Oh, Discord's doing the thing again. Okay. Um.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let me just
Oh,
swap.
hello?
Yeah, hello. Let me swap to the. I'm gonna swap to the web client because I've been having these problems with the
Hi.
desktop client recently. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Apologies for the technical difficulties. I will make sure to cut that in post. Um, yes, so you're talking about AI usage and learning to program.
Yeah. So I think it's actually kind of tricky to learn a program for me
Mhm,
because the type of software I like to write
mhm,
and the type of software I can write are very different. I think starting out, normally people learn things piece by piece
Mhm,
and put together some sort of uh, program based off the essentials. Like if you're learning C, you'd start learning variables and types, and you get into structs, and then you'd probably do some pointers and stuff like that.
mhm, mhm,
But for me, it's all kind of a little different. It's like backwards. I'm starting from software that Apple's written, figuring out how the heck to read and modify it,
mhm,
and then going in from a different angle where I'm trying to change it. And then I learn about Objective C and how it's like a superset of C, and it has all these Apple uh, specific frameworks attached to it.
mhm,
And then I learn, oh well, it's part of C, and but it's not really. And so it's kind of tricky. AI really helps me because the type of software I like to write with no access to source code, I can kind of like review some private APIs and stuff, and it really helps me dig into and understand what some of the methods might be that I'm using when I'm reverse engineering.
mhm, mhm,
So if I'm using IDA or something like Hopper
mhm,
disassembler, I can go ahead and take the DYLD shared cache and decompile it and find AppKit framework and dig into all its class names and find out what it does and look at this tree structure and all that. But then to figure out how to actually inject that code into the system at an application level and make modifications to my software so
mhm,
that my tweaks actually work. That's where AI helps, because there's not really a whole lot of tutorials on that.
mhm, mhm,
So yeah, and if I was on Linux, it'd be a whole different situation. I'd probably just stick with NeoVim and develop more Nix stuff and go ahead and learn C that way with the regular GNU compiler. And I feel like I would like to do that at some point. I'm just so busy, and I really, I really appreciate Linux, and I want that experience on my Mac with the battery life it's got.
mhm, mhm.
And I got the whole ecosystem of iOS, you know, Apple products, and I'm just sick of it having to not do what I want. And I'm here to change that for not just myself, but for everyone.
Mhm, mhm,
AI helps you do that.
mhm, mhm,
Helps. And I know that not a lot of people actually have learned to code with AI, and you started with resources, and I kind of feel like that's the right way to do it. When you're in a mindset where you can learn and read from a book, which I actually really struggle with, by the way.
mhm,
If you get something like the KNR, the C programming language, I highly recommend the second edition. It's a really good read. I'm still reading it again. But I also I just want to not discourage people to use AI because there's projects like this that it could be out there right now. Anyone besides me could go out there and learn how to make a Wayland compositor using AI.
mhm,
There's so many things that since I started this in November, I didn't know what Wayland protocols were.
mhm,
I didn't know what a surface was or the concept of seats. Uh, I didn't know that you could like make a backend and a front end like that, where you have your front end be actual native code, and then somehow get that to connect with Rust bindings. I had no idea that was going to be a thing. Um, Wayland is like super big and super scary, and I just encourage people to go and try just asking Google or AI if you really want to how the heck to do it,
mhm.
and maybe make a test client or something.
The reason why I ask you is I'm just kind of curious, like where things are actually at, because I don't really make use of much of this tooling myself. Like my video transcripts, just because writing an entire transcript by hand is a nightmare. I will usually start with a baseline generated through Whisper and then like go through and hand correct it because it makes up words because it can't understand my accent sometimes. Um, or I sometimes just pronounce words wrong. But I yeah, I just am not really super aware of where things are for approaching things like Wayland and macOS development, things like that. Like I knew early on it was pretty good for web development stuff because there's sort of a
Mm.
lot of examples of how to do web development, but besides that, I feel like a lot of people. I think the opinions on the quality of it that people have are sort of set like a year or two ago, and a lot of people don't actually know where things are at. Like a lot of people don't like the tech and don't
Mhm.
keep an eye on where it's going. And I at least try to keep an eye on it, but it's moving so quickly that like it's very easy to lose track of it.
Right. I can see that. I can understand that. It happens really fast. It's like the new tech push, AI, using AI everywhere. And I actually kind of don't agree with a lot of it because it ends up just invading our lives. But that's gonna be how it is, I think, and we
My
gotta
favorite
get used to
example,
it.
my favorite example I saw is I saw this store that didn't have a search bar. It had an AI chatbot that would find the products on the store for you, which is just the worst
Oh,
possible way to operate a store. Like it's just a
yeah,
worse
yeah.
experience.
I think there's so many things that we can't hand program. There's if you're doing robotics, there's just so many things that it just wouldn't make sense to try and write every single movement by yourself, every motor, every degree. It just doesn't make sense. So if you can train like an AI model using machine learning or deep learning, that's kind of where it's really useful. A lot of times these programming projects, they really just make use of a large language model that really caters to everyone and just uses a large database pretty much off the entire internet, just scrapes the whole internet, puts it all in a giant thing called the pile.
Mhm,
There might be more or something right now, but the whole point really is to make this general model available to everyone. And then people are really good at making that happen. And they pour billions of dollars in and still are like, whether they're stealing content or not, I won't get into that. There's a lot of AI artists that are out there kind of invading TikTok, and you see a lot of AI generated content. But I'm not on social media platforms, and so for me to be over here and using AI, it's a completely different experience.
mhm,
Like I can go from having a very basic macOS window with nothing in it, or maybe some text input. And then I could ask AI, hey, I actually need to replace this view with a Wayland surface. It's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. The internet doesn't know how you're supposed to do that. Like, this is like pioneering type of stuff that not only will you have to read a book, but you'll have to have a Linux machine and you'll have to sit down and develop it all in Linux and figure out how to get it to run on Mac, which really isn't something that you can just read about and learn. And so I use AI because I take on projects that are weird like this, and there's like no written material that can help me unless I spend years on it and learning. And since I'm still new at coding, I can't just take on Mac OS Week development without something like AI, and I can't just take on a Wayland compositor without spending months of learning how to program on a Linux machine with a Wayland environment already available.
mhm,
So
mhm,
it really is helpful for creating something that's new and something that again is kind of like a black box where you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know how to implement it because it's one of those challenges where there's not a pre-existing example to go after.
mhm. Well, on that note, like, what has the, I guess, what has the quality been like using it? Have you run into situations where you get given something and it's just utter garbage and you're like, this is obviously not working? Like, what is that model of integrating AI into the workflow been like?
Uh, it has been really fun actually. I actually spend a lot of time. I spend 8 hours in a row sometimes just sitting down and speaking to AI, trying to figure out how do I structure this repo? You know, how the heck am I going to get Rust to take in the protocols and generate bindings and then use that with Nix somehow and pass in environment variables? Like I could go on and on and on and on and eventually have this beautiful like project repo and just everything kind of makes sense. It's just laid out perfectly to compile for every platform and run everywhere.
Mhm,
Um, And then the other part of it is just spending a lot of money. You burn through token usage, and you just get to a point where you just wish you knew how to program and do it all on your own, and then spend your time doing that. So it's great and it's not great. A lot of people call this vibe coding, where you sit down for hours asking AI how to help. Um, but I really just want to emphasize my project goals aren't to sit down and use AI and vibe code a Wayland compositor. I just want a Wayland compositor that runs on all of the devices that it doesn't run on. And I want it to be like available for everyone. And eventually, I really do want to rewrite this entire code base by myself without AI. I think it's a really helpful learning tool. I can skip reading the books. I can skip programming directly on Linux, where all the tools are already available, and I can have it today create patches for the systems I'm on.
Mhm.
Normally they wouldn't be. And once those big hurdles are out of the way, I can still get homework done and come back and just play with test clients on my computer. Like
Mhm.
that's all it really is. And I it's a learning experience for me. So right now it is usable. And then there's always times where you're using the LLM and it just spits out garbage. I don't want to speak negatively of it, because it's just one of those things that's trendy right now. But there are some difficult times with it where, I'm wasting my time and starting over. Like, for example, just rewriting the whole thing in Rust because it doesn't know how to handle C safely.
Mhm.
So there are architectural decisions that are made because I'm using AI,
Mhm.
and that's not great, but it's what we have. And I don't know if you wanna help me and get this up and running and contribute to this source code. Like, I will take as many PRs as you send my way. I want this to be working, and I want it to be out there today. I don't want it to wait another 10 years when someone figures out how to write it all.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
No, I'm just very curious about this development structure. Um, I've said my piece many times on the way the AI is being used for a lot of things, and I feel like a lot of people have issues with the way a lot of things are being done. But I don't know. I am not wholly against this tech. At the end of the day, I don't really care what other people are doing, but I am certainly interested in the way they're approaching problems.
I kind of agree on that. I'm not wholly against it either. Um, I just wish I could do this, and it was just done like last year,
Mm.
and I could just use the tooling that comes after.
Oh,
I'm really hopeful.
why is your
Uh,
camera blurry?
I don't know. It probably turned off.
What?
Sorry, one sec. Let me see.
Uh, okay, now it's not my side having issues this time.
No,
That's
it's my
good.
side. Oh no.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. All right. All right. All right.
That was a new
So
one.
where were we?
We're just going off of the AI topic.
Oh, oh.
What is your
I
camera
don't
doing?
know. I don't know what it's doing. Sorry.
Has it like overheated or something?
I don't know. It's an iPhone, so
Mate, okay, mate. I don't know if they overheat being a camera too long. Um,
I don't know.
I don't know. So right now, what would you consider to be kind of project blockers, things that are sort of getting in your way in the, I guess, immediate?
Process spawning, multi-process spawning on iOS. I
Mhm.
did create like a virtual kernel as a library you can import into your project
Mhm.
and spawn multiple libraries. And as of right now, it's kind of broken, but I did have it working. It's important for things like running waypipe and then having waypipe execute OpenSSH, and then having SSH connect to your client and run stuff. But for example, like if you wanted to compile a Wayland client for usage with this, you could compile it for iOS and then sideload it and put it like in the file structure that I've laid out, like a shared folder that you can upload your Wayland clients on iOS and run them directly, but because of unsigned code execution problems, you can't really do that. So I'm trying to work on a way around that. And another thing is when you connect a client and you want it to use client-side decoration, one of the things that's a big blocker for me there is not only rendering the client side without like macOS windows, but like having the shadows not be part of that window. And when you want to resize, that you resize from the frame of the actual client. And I did figure some of this out, but it ends up being a real pain in the butt, and it is
Don't
a
worry,
huge,
those
oh
are
my
problems
gosh,
that
I need to
also
fix this.
exist on Linux. Don't,
Yeah,
these are not unique problems to you.
yeah. So these are some annoyances, but some real project blockers, I guess. If you want to talk like, oh my God, it's gonna kill the project, I'd say graphics acceleration,
Mhm,
getting Vulkan, getting OpenGL. I have to somehow figure out who's going to make like a graphics driver for macOS and iOS that runs OpenGL. And like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know how to do that. Someone needs to do that. Please do it. Please make it happen. I would love to just import it and use it. And if you consider iOS as well, that would extremely help.
mhm,
But also another thing is like, I would like to use the Cosmic Crisp driver for Vulkan, but it only supports Mac because no one's thinking about iOS right now.
mhm,
If literally anyone wants to spend some time trying to figure out how to get that to work on iOS, that'd be great because I don't know how to test it.
mhm, mhm,
These are some project blockers that are like, oh my goodness, I wish I just knew how to do it, and it's going to take me a long time on my own, and I really need your help.
mhm.
So,
If there was
and
a
then there's
oh,
Android.
oh yes.
There's Android, yeah. There's also Android. I have no idea how it's going to work over there.
Considering that there's already a lot of like you've like termux and stuff like that, I would imagine it's probably an easier process on that side. And considering that it is, it's still a Linux kernel underneath. Obviously,
Mhm.
Android still has a lot of the same kind of limitations that exist on iOS, but I would
Mhm.
imagine there's probably more. I can't. I would have to assume somebody's probably tried to do this already on the Android side. I'm not aware of any projects.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually already some progress in that sense, just running Wayland on Android
Hmm.
using Termux, and you can kind of do that today. So I'm not really trying to compete directly. I just want some equivalence. If I'm going to use an iPhone, I want some of that.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate Android for being super open and available and able to be not so jailed and uh, but that's a topic for another day. I know how to bypass a lot of limitations on iPhone, and I feel like I can be in charge of that. But if people want to tell me it's not impossible, great. But people who say it's impossible, that's when it's like, okay, here's how you do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let me show you. This is it. This is working. This is a proof.
Hmm.
And I don't know. If you want to try it, you can. It's not going to be in the App Store because of the nature of Wayland. But someday, someday we'll have a fully working iOS Wayland compositor, a fully working macOS Wayland compositor, something on Android someday.
Hmm.
And maybe at some point we'll get to my major overarching goal, which is one-to-one UI UX. You have keybinds, you have window management, you have like desktop styles and themes, and your windows look the same and work everywhere. I'm actually going to figure out how to use Waypipe to forward macOS AppKit and iOS UIKit
Hmm.
front ends over to over to Linux over Wayland. So you'll pretty soon at some point you'll be able to use macOS and iOS applications on your Linux machine. That's just something I have in mind. So right now, we've got macOS and it kind of works. That's kind of the big thing to hooray right now. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
I do want to get into a lot of the long term goals, but let's just, before we get to that, what would you consider to be like An MVP, the minimum viable product, where if nothing else was done at this point, it would be okay and good enough.
I think I would like to bundle Weston
Mhm.
and get pretty much everything in Weston running. And so if you start up the application and you don't have anything else, at least having a Weston environment would be nice, nested. Um, I want all platforms to compile out of the box. Like I just want people to use and be able to use it, and it just works. But ideally, if it's just going to be somewhat usable at all, I just need Wayland running. I need Wayland clients to connect and be able to render their surfaces and be interactable, whether that's touch input, keyboard, mouse input. It doesn't matter. I just need an app that can like do it, because like that's the goal. That's the goal.
Mhm, mhm.
If we can get there, that's like okay, that's good enough.
So okay, well, with that, the more, I guess, expansive goals, then your like vision for the project. I am. You've got some big ideas you got here.
Oh, we're getting into this. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to.
So iOS, uh, obviously I'm targeting jailed, but I want to make a tweak where you can jailbreak your phone
Mhm.
and completely replace the whole like interface, just like you would on the Mac if I was going to get that running as well.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, so that means you no longer have iOS Springboard or login. You just go straight into the custom desktop environment. That would be the universal thing that I make with the display manager and all. That's one thing.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
Two, I really want iOS to have some sort of Samsung DeX experience, and that means when you connect to
Oh.
external displays, you can use the touchpad on your phone as like an actual input, and there's a cursor. And I've actually got some sort of prototype of that running.
Mhm,
Um, you can actually put applications inside of an application on iOS, so you can actually run iOS apps inside of iOS apps. And
mhm.
there's already a project out there that does this called Live Container, and they've already figured out there's some really I would say really smart people that are on that project, and they already figured out how to like use LLVM and the LLDB or whatever, and get an application to run unsigned, like inside of
Mhm,
an iOS app using dot dylib or
mhm.
dyld, um, which is like a dynamic library, or just like Apple, uh, just a lot of those stuff, and it bypasses signature verification. So I want to figure that out. I want to use side loading and this VPN from the App Store to be able to get every 7 days a free code sign for your app, so it just runs and you don't have to like, continuously side load and lose all your progress. Another big project I have is obviously like getting this application for iOS to have built-in uh, built-in tools. So built-in Weston, it'll be bundled, but I want people to be able to compile and develop their own iOS Wayland apps on iOS. And that means I'm going to have to figure out how am I going to get a compiler on the phone, not just like a virtual kernel, but there's a lot of stuff going there, and I might have to make a package manager for the iPhone. And doing it all jailed with multi-process spawning, that's going to take a lot of time and effort, and it's like way out of scope for Wayland. Another big project I have is just getting iOS and macOS apps to send over Waypipe, and that basically means you can SSH into your Linux machine and render a Linux app, or you could just go the other way. You could SSH from a Linux machine to your Mac and render a Mac app on your Linux machine. That thing doesn't exist right now, and I want to pioneer something that does that for iPhone and Mac.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I'm going to make my own full screen compositing desktop environment and window manager. I want to make some sort of tiling thing. It might be scrollable. It might might be some ripoff of Sway effects or Neri or something. I have no idea. I just really want it to be super powerful, universal, and work everywhere. Have the same keybinds. No, no like limitations. I just want it to be full blown. It just is like insane. And on iOS, that means I need to figure out how to get a frame buffer running for the jailed version or the jailbroken version of this. But there's a lot of goals there. And then if we step back for a moment and focus specifically on Wayland,
Mhm.
I want graphics acceleration. I want to support Vulkan. I want GPU drivers that run in user space for macOS. So I need something somewhat like Cosmic Crisp, where you got the Vulkan 1.3 compliant Vulkan drivers on macOS. I want that sort of thing. I need it for iOS. I need to somehow get OpenGL running. I want to support everything. I really do. I want users to be able to take KDE, Plasma, or whatever, compile it natively for macOS, and then somehow run their macOS apps directly in it, and have previously Linux-only apps right side by side inside of a Plasma-based desktop environment on their Mac as a full replacement. I want this kind of stuff today, and I want everyone else to have that because I don't know, I'm ambitious.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
I
can
need
see
this to
that.
happen. I need this to happen. I really hope people can realize, holy cow, I could have so much that I'm not having because it's not a thing. And I want to show people you really can do this and it could be done today, but I can't do it alone. I'm one person. I can only tell you it's possible, and I can show you some examples and say, "Hey, look at this. It kind of works." Whether I use AI or not, those are big project goals. Um,
Mhm.
and if I get there, that's great. I really need I really need your support, and I need to, I guess, prove to you that it's real and you can do it in the
Mhm.
first place. So that's what I'm doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, the overall the project sounds really cool, but with how big your goals are, I like it's hard to see how you get there.
And this is where AI comes in because it's just such a massive repo scope. There's just no way it's going to happen. Um, and so I really need to emphasize like AI is going to help a lot. AI is going to help with the initial porting of tools, the initial compiling of software that doesn't exist on Mac. Right now, it helps me get keyboard input working in my Wayland surfaces, even though it's a Mac OS window and the Linux client has no idea what the keys are because they're all wrong. Like I could use intuition for that, but I'd rather just write a simple like C program for fun that, you know, um, it's not a great experience if you're doing it all on your own. So I really have to emphasize like this is what AI is for. There's this kind of black box. There's this massive repo scope. It's not going to happen with intuition alone unless you're getting paid and if you're out of school and if you have a whole team with you. And I have none of those, so I just want to mention like that's kind of like how I plan to do this. I plan to build it all out using AI, and
Mhm.
hopefully I can get some donations and help so I'm not doing it all on my own, and maybe some PRs and stuff. If anyone's interested, it's open source. You can check it out. If it compiles for you, great.
Mhm.
um, but it's not going to happen in a night. Even if you can port Wayland over to macOS and make it a simple compositor in a weekend using AI, this type of goal that I've set, it's very large and it's going to take me probably 40 years of an estimate. So I plan to be doing this the rest of my life. I just got to put that out there. This is going to be my spiel.
Mhm. Mhm.
I want to be known for this. So,
No,
yeah.
I respect the drive. If nothing else, I respect
Yeah.
the drive and the desire to do something, even if the way you're doing it isn't the
Hmm.
way a lot of people would want you to approach it. The use of AI, a lot of people would want you
Hmm.
to just start from the very start, doing things from
Hmm.
scratch, and I can understand that perspective. But at the same time,
Hmm.
I respect the drive. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I do kind of feel sorry. I know there's a lot of your viewers that are skeptics of AI, and they're gonna probably be upset when they see this.
Probably.
I just want to remind you, like, think of what's possible. I don't care who does it, but if we get a Wayland compositor for the phone, for iPhone, and we could just run like Linux apps from your Linux PC on your iPhone, like that's like all that really matters. Like that would be so cool. I'm just tired of having VNC and RDP and not being able to use Mac on Linux. All these little issues that I know how to solve.
Mhm.
I know how to do it. And I'm just here to show you it's possible. Uh, and I really just hope you can agree with me that whether or not it's with some help of AI, as a single person, like this is pretty cool.
Whilst there might not be something for iOS, there are some prior attempts at doing Wayland for macOS. Have you had a look at those yourself?
I have looked at Owl Compositor. It's
Mhm.
really hard to compile. It
Yeah, a lot
actually
of people had
uses,
issues with it. It's 5 years old. It probably isn't built for modern macOS at this point.
and that's exactly where Nix comes in because you can just use Nix. Someone else has already figured out. You just do a Nix package for that. Right now it's broken, but someone can fix it.
Mhm.
Owl Compositor for macOS doesn't really do a whole lot today. I really like the idea of Owl, and I think Owl was made without AI, and I think that's great. There's some pioneering effort there that I really appreciate from the developer. I think it's also a hobby project, and
Mhm.
it's one of those things that is a goal, but it's not currently being developed, and that kind of thing is not it's not worth it for me to look at and target as something to contribute to if it's not in active development, if it's going to be stuck in a stalemate for the
Mhm.
rest of uh, however long. So I started over. A lot of the Owl compositor, um, it has this fork of like libwayland, like the
Mhm.
server, and it's in C, and it is kind of outdated. And Owl Compositor uses a lot of older, outdated protocols, and that's why a lot of stuff isn't really working.
Mhm.
And then you get CPU-based rendering because it uses a lot of core graphics instead of something like a metal view. And so my goals are a little different. I really think the Owl Compositor is pretty cool, but it just isn't usable today. Maybe someday it will be. But if you're a fan of Wayland and you're a fan of macOS, maybe that's something you could check out as well.
Mhm. A more recent project is this one. I don't know if you've seen this one. Wayo by Eric Curtin.
I have not even looked at that. I didn't even know it was a thing. I guess I saw your video and it looked like it was only 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
something like
about
that.
three.
Uh,
Latest commit was 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I have no idea if they're using AI or not. If they're not, that's really cool. Um, I just think that if anybody wants to put in effort to get Wayland on a Mac, that's
Mhm.
great. We need more efforts here because even though even though Wayland's already like it's kind of like new and all that, it gives a lot of promise over X11 if you're going to port it over to some third party stuff like macOS, you know.
Mhm. Mhm. The reason I mention them is just as sort of examples of how to do things. Um,
Hmm.
Whether or not you contribute to them is a whole other question, but there
Right.
are other
Yeah.
approaches for how to do Wayland on macOS. So it's more examples of
Right.
how this can be done.
Yep. I think that's really cool. I haven't looked at Wayoa. I believe it's called or pronounced Wayoa, but I've looked at Owl and I see a little bit of how it works, and I think it's really inspiring.
Okay. Um, let's see. What have we not actually talked about? I don't even know. Um, Prior projects. Why replace macOS blockers? Under the long-term goals, you said you basically wanted to support like every Wayland protocol.
Hmm.
Like, again, this is another one of these like really
So
big goals.
yeah. So this is another thing that's like that's not happening.
Okay.
This is where people are gonna be like, there's no way. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, let me try. And then I find out later. Um, but I want to keep this naive approach of like, oh yeah, I can do it. Because like if I don't, then I
Mhm.
don't try and I don't
Mm.
find out. If no one's gonna try, I'm not saying no one's going to, but if I don't try, I won't know that it's not possible until I find out, you know? If I can support WL roots, I can get stuff like Sway up and running, and I really appreciate Sway because like it's a tiling window manager. It's so nice. I want that. I want that for macOS.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
want you to have it for macOS. I just don't want there to be any excuses like, oh, if I'm not going to support WL roots protocols, then boom, suddenly there goes the nested compositor support for Sway. There goes
mhm,
all the WL roots based compositors that you could have used. That's my like, okay, that's my take. There's a lot of stuff that's like, why would you support that? Like touch input.
mhm.
You're on a Mac. There's no touchscreen Macs. I just want to point out that someday they're going to make a touchscreen Mac, and I'm gonna look at you and I'll be like, well, we should probably think about supporting that protocol now. So if you hear the rumors, there's probably going to be a touchscreen Mac, and I just don't want to think about not supporting touchscreen just because we're on a Mac platform.
Mhm.
And I also want to mention there's like many other things that are like just not going to matter, like disk stuff. I don't know if there's like disk partitioning related stuff that I have to figure out. There's going to be protocols that are like in development and just not even implemented anywhere, and I have to figure out why like. So I don't know. I just want to make it the goal,
Mhm.
and if anyone wants to try and implement it with me, great. uh, but that's the naive approach that I'm willing to stand behind.
I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but it seems like you're driving, I guess, how would you say it? Your driving vision, your North Star is basically gaslight yourself into thinking it's possible until you know it's not.
So far, everything that people have told me is not possible, I've found a way that it is,
Mhm,
and that happens everywhere. And a lot of times it's because there's code that you don't have access to, and it's just a matter of reverse engineering that proprietary code and figuring out how to do it yourself or how to implement it or how to inject into that code at runtime and modify it.
mhm,
And these are all skills that I've been learning, that are very helpful for me to look at something like, oh, I want to make a display manager. I want to make a desktop environment. I want to replace macOS entirely. That's completely possible because of efforts of reverse engineering. And someone would have looked at me and said, that's not a thing. You can't just get a frame buffer up and running like that.
mhm.
Well, I'm here to tell you you can, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So there's constantly that naive mindset. People are going to say that's not a thing. You can't remove title bars from macOS Windows. Like that's not a thing.
Mhm.
Well, I can. I can do that today. Uh, and there's all these like, no, you can't do it. So if I continue this mindset of, well, you said no, so I'm hearing that as a yes.
Mhm.
There's going to be a point where everything's a yeah, it's possible, and this is the current implementation. Whether it's good or not, it's going to be something
Mhm.
instead of nothing. So no more shutdowns. Yeah, until I find some sort of implementation detail that's just really not feasible
Mhm.
or something that doesn't make any sense,
Right,
and
right,
we can
right,
just
right,
skip
right.
that. Yeah.
So you said you're like interested in doing like Mac tweaking stuff like this. Like, what actually got you interested in the Apple platform?
So I had a gaming laptop
Mm,
and it lasted about 10 minutes on a battery, and I went to lecture and it died and I
that's
had
about
nowhere to
right.
plug it in. So I was like, oh no, that's bad. And I found out in 2020 they released these MacBook Airs with the ARM-based Apple Silicon. And they had these batteries that lasted about 20 hours on a charge. And I was like, oh, that looks nice. So I spent, with an Apple like student discount, just some of my spare change here and there and got a MacBook. And pretty soon I was like running Linux on that. and then I found out it doesn't work with EduRoam Wi-Fi. And it turns out when you're at school, you really need to connect to the network so you can access your classes. So I had to like go back to macOS and use it there, and it just becomes not feasible for a student to sit down and use a Mac and then to use Linux on a Mac because it's just not all there yet. Because uh, with these MacBooks, it's all proprietary. So not only do you have to reverse engineer like Linux drivers for macOS, you have to reverse engineer the hardware of the macOS, the Macs that are running too, to support this Linux. And I've been following like the Asahi project of Linux for a while, and it's really exciting to me. But it's also not feasible when things like Wi-Fi don't work. So I'm sitting here with my macOS as my main boot, and I use Linux on my desktop, which is completely taken apart right now. So I'm stuck on a Mac, and I actually like being on Mac because I don't necessarily like it that much. And that gives me all this room for ideas and ambition to go ahead and make it work the way that I want to, as if it was Linux. And then we reach this point where whether I like it or not, uh, I can make it however I want it to be. And then I'm out here making tweaks for macOS. That's kind of how it started.
The older
Yeah.
Macs were a lot more, maybe not open's the right word, but at least not as locked down. Like I remember having I don't know, one of the old white MacBooks, whatever 2011, whatever year that was, 2010. The
Something
like
like a PowerBook.
the white clamshell ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we were running like Windows on them as well. Like
Uh-huh.
back with those ones, you could run a lot more with them. It's sort of like the more
Mm.
recent stuff where it's like, no, you can't do any of that. We desperately want you to like stay within our ecosystem. Like if you go buy like one of the older MacBook Pros, running Linux on that is pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's some driver issues and things don't work out of the box, but mostly you were fine with most of the Intel Macs. When you got into the ARM stuff, that's where things were like, I'm happy with the work that's been done with Asahi. Like the fact that that project exists is really cool, and it's come a long way. They have working GPU drivers there now. Like you can play games on them. It's actually super cool what is actually possible through that project.
So again, I absolutely love the Asahi project. I'm really happy that they're pioneering that effort because it's massive and it's ambitious, you know.
Mhm.
And I find that as an inspiration to go ahead and do something similar. Whether or not I know what I'm doing, I'm doing it.
Mhm.
And I I do have experience with like replacing the actual OS with something else. And once you start it running into the T2 based Macs, you know, with the T2 chip, T2 security, and then now with Apple Silicon with the secure enclave processors, just like the iPhones, you end up getting this problem where you have to side load. You have to have a Mac partition to keep firmware updates, and then you can like have a second partition for Linux, and you can't no longer just replace it directly.
Right.
And then you have this whole boot chain problem because it's not compatible with, you know, like the UEFI standards. So
Mhm.
just having something like Asahi is super, super fascinating. And I think everyone's lucky that it's even a thing.
What I think is very interesting about Asahi is like the Apple engineers clearly seem to be totally okay with it because at any moment they could just put a stop to like the way they're approaching things. But there's random little things that I would never expect to be documented that are. Like this
Hmm.
seems like one of those things where the engineers would love Linux to be fully available in these systems, but management's like, no, we're not doing that. So they just like comply at the easiest level possible. Like that, I don't know any Apple engineers, but from everything I've heard from people in the USI project, that seems to kind of be the way things have been built.
I think it's super fascinating. I think it's really interesting. But we're starting to learn with projects. there's some MIT researchers that are finding out how to reverse engineer some of Apple's ecosystem, and one of the latest ones being like how to like figure out why the Wi-Fi is so fast on these Apple
Mm.
ecosystem, and they use the standard Wi-Fi protocols. They just communicate differently, and so reverse engineering Apple products to figure out how to make something like the iPad extended display or something like AirPlay, figuring out all of those protocols like AirDrop.
Mm.
When you reverse engineer those, and then make it more available across platform for this ecosystem to expand beyond Apple products, I really find that really interesting and fascinating, and I'm surprised that it's even possible. Um, but then like having that available to other platforms,
Mm.
that's when it, how do I put it? That's when it's like super like out of bounds. Like it's typically like an out of bounds situation where you feel like this is something Apple doesn't want you to do. So I have no idea how the Asahi Linux project and Apple, whether they clash or whether they look at it and say, "Oh, that's cool." I don't know. I'm not a part of it directly, but I'm just here to tear down some walls and to build bridges. My biggest motto right now is just build bridges, not walls. And I think being able to run Wayland applications directly on iPhone and directly on your Mac is one of the best ways to do that.
Do you have any other big visions, or was this sort of taking up most of that energy?
I want to make a tunneling window manager for macOS, and it will just be code injection. So you have to disable secure integrity protection, obviously,
Sure.
to get code injection. But if you're willing to do such a thing, you can just go ahead and inject everything at runtime. And then I actually figured out a way to shrink applications down to any arbitrary minimum size. And I figured out how that can be wrapped inside of like an arbitrary frame, and you can draw custom graphics to this frame. So one of the goals I have at some point is to get like a Windows XP based UI on these macOS, and just when I log in, it's just like you just see like the Windows XP, the minimize, the maximize, the close buttons at the top right with the massive like blue ribbon title bars, and I know it's possible, and I
Mhm.
want it to be tiling for whatever reason. So that's something I'm going to do at some point,
Mhm,
just
mhm.
completely unrelated.
That also sounds pretty fun as well.
Yeah, I mean it's like your oyster. Like this, you bought this computer. You should be able to do what you want to it. I know it's not Linux, but I'm in this unique situation that I could very well easily just go buy a Linux computer if I wanted to. But I figure while I'm here and I'm learning how to program, this is kind of one of those areas where I'm in a situation where I can make it better for everyone.
Mhm, mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, as I said a couple of times, I do think what you're doing is pretty cool. I think somebody, again, if nobody else is really working on as ambitious of a project as you are, it's kind of hard to complain that you're doing things the way you're doing them. Like
Sure.
if somebody has an issue with like the way you're approaching this problem,
Mhm.
there's not much competition here. You can go make something. Like
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm in this unique position where it's not really made before. I mean, obviously we have Wayland compositors, and that's a
sure, sure,
thing.
sure.
Uh, but there's all this pioneering effort that I kind of got to sit through and sift through on my own, whether I'm going to do that on my own or the assistance of AI. It is my hobby, and I want it to be something that I do for a job. Uh, so if this is even something I can get funding for based on the nature of it being able to run anywhere, uh, I don't know. I have no idea what the future holds for me. I'm still trying to get a job. I'm still trying to get a degree. Uh, but like, yeah, I'm in this unique landscape where the world's my oyster. I can
Mm-hmm.
kind of form it how I want, and we get this zero competition right now. Hopefully that changes. I mean, I want some other people to sit down and write Wayland for macOS, and If it can shoot for iOS, great. Uh, and if you could do it without AI, that's even more impressive. I'm not going to tell you not to. I just want to be able to run my Linux apps. Like I want to be able to get Waylands and I want to
Mhm,
get Waydroid and I want sway effects and
mhm, mhm, mhm.
I want people to customize their Macs and we're working on the ability to just do everything.
Mm.
So if I'm doing it on my own, it's gonna be sad, but it's gonna be slow. So if anyone's willing to contribute, I'm all ears. I'll listen.
When you first showed us of this project, like what sort of response did you get to it?
So I got a lot of pushback, like, you're like using AI or something, or like, oh, this is going to be a garbage repo. And then I got a lot of like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And I got like a big mix of both extremes. I never got like an in between.
Mm.
And the most frustrating question, or I don't know, it's so like much of a statement that it's not a question. It's more like, but why? And I really, really get triggered every time someone says that because it's because you're not thinking. Just like you want to use your Android applications on an iPhone, this is a way to do that. Like you want to use Linux applications on an iPhone, this is a way to do that. You want to get rid of those black bars at the top and bottom of your VNC client. You can do that. Like you can render the actual nested desktop environment at the native resolution of your screen on your phone. And like that's something I want to help you do. Like I want to help you. I'm here to help. I'm here to make this thing be available and work and not be just a toy that you look at as some vibe coded AI project because I really don't. And again, someday I do plan on rewriting the whole thing on my own, but I do got to learn some other programming languages for whatever reason. My school wants me to learn Java, so I got to sit through that. Uh,
Ah, that's fun. Yeah.
it feels it feels out of the way. I
My
don't know.
my school was a big fan of Java because we had military contractors just down the road. Military contractors love Java.
Wow. See, I don't even know what to do with Java. I kind of understand it. I mean, you got JIT compilation. Probably the most I've done with Java is be able to run Minecraft on an iPhone, like the Java edition of Minecraft.
Mhm.
You have to enable like just-in-time compilation, and there's some ways to do that, but I'm not a big fan of it. That's just where I sit. So unfortunately, I have to learn it, and that's kind of like there's always going to be something else grabbing my attention
Mhm.
in my free time to sit down and use my intuition. But if I can just maybe zone out for a bit, but additionally like learn how Wayland works and talk to AI, that's great. I can structure my repository, I can clean it up, I can reduce lines of code, you know. Optimizations are great, and I I'm so glad that the tools are here to do that, to assist me as a single person right now. Um, if I don't start this and I don't gain traction and there's not a whole people with eyes, it's going to be really hard for me to find contributors and
Mhm.
people that are interested in the project. So I'm really glad that you reached out and you found me. So
When you said you
yeah,
don't like people asking like why you're doing this, I don't think everybody who's asking that is asking it maliciously. Like obviously you're
yeah,
gonna have people who are like, oh, why are you doing this? This is a waste of time. But I think some people are like
mhm,
I asked the question like why are you doing this? And it's for me it's more like this is a weird thing. Like why did you even get the idea that this is something you wanted to do? Like this is interesting, but like you know, what is your
mhm.
motivation here, I guess?
So I do listen to the words like but why, and I sometimes hear it in like a why, like this is
Mm.
such a waste of your time. Like
Yeah,
sometimes I
yeah.
hear it that way, and I really try not to, but that's just kind of how I hear it. And I really just want to point out again, like I want you to think less about implementation detail. If we can abstract that all away and just present to you the finished product,
Mhm,
you can run all of your Linux applications on your iPhone today. Like
mhm,
that is like the goal. That is the why. you can integrate it directly into the native macOS interface desktop. Like you can do that. That is another why. Uh, but I'm also learning. Like I'm
Mhm,
trying to learn to develop code on my own. I'm trying to learn how Wayland works. I'm trying to get a job.
mhm,
So like having a hobby that's ambitious and can give me some of my learnings on my free time, whether I'm coding or not. That's kind of another why.
mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm,
Also, probably the biggest why is I really like Linux, and a lot of people who don't know what that is, it's hard to tell them, like, you can customize it however you want. It's like macOS, it's like Windows, but it's a whole other operating system where you choose, and I really like that. I really like the ability to choose how it looks, how it behaves, and how I interact with my computer, and that's another big why.
mhm,
So, yeah, I wanna give you options, and
mhm,
I'm not here to make a useless, vibe coded project. That's where I'm sitting.
mhm. I can't even imagine the challenges of trying to break into the developer job market right now. That seems like a lot of a lot of stress with, there's people who are
Mhm.
sending out like 11,000 resumes a day that are all just like slightly tweaked. I mean, you kind of like, you have to do it because everybody else is doing it, and then all the companies know that people are doing this, and then they're using AI on their end to filter out the AI. This
Yeah.
seems like such a nightmare to, like, if you're established, it's one thing. If you have connections, it's one thing. But trying to break into that market now, just, I don't even know where you'd begin.
Yeah, I feel nervous about that too. I haven't had much experience again. I kind of just started. Like 2022, I started learning program in Python. And then like 2023, we started learning Java, and I kind of dove into NixOS at that time, and now I'm kind of diving into C right now. So it is a slow learning, slow churning process, and I'm not even done with my degree yet. So I have no idea how that's going to look. I'm applying to internships right now. I have yet to hear back, but um, yeah, it is brutal. My only advice is just to build something and take up your free time with more programming, and learn something like Wayland. You can come work with me if you want. Uh, Volunteer, obviously.
Do
Yeah. So
you have
yeah,
something more positive to say? Because that's kind of a downer there.
give something more positive.
Yeah, let's go somewhere more positive. I don't know why I brought up the terrible job market.
Uh, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Um, you should join my Discord. Everyone who's watching right now, I did make it available. It's on my repo.
Mhm.
I need moderation. Uh, I need some help. And yeah, I don't know. Come talk. Come be a part of it. Come enjoy what makes customizing the Mac so much fun.
Mhm. Fair enough. Um, is there anything that we haven't really touched on yet? Because I feel like we've talked about most things.
Um, I don't know, maybe donations or how the heck this is gonna work.
Mm. Okay. What do you want
Well,
to say there?
Well, uh, I did open up my GitHub for donations. If anyone is willing to contribute with pull requests, that's great. If anyone wants to try it, that's great. Like, if anyone wants to even be interested at all, that's great.
Mhm,
I did create this sponsor, so uh, you can donate to me if you want to see progress here. I am spending a lot on AI to even do this anyway,
mhm,
and I'm giving it out for free. And it could be another one of those things where I make this a proprietary closed source paid for solution. I really don't agree with that. Everyone tells me I should, and I know that I could make money that way, but I'm really out here trying to do the best for everybody in a fully open source software kind of way.
mhm,
So feel free to support me financially if you can, or with just outreach and getting it to the people who are able to make some changes, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I guess, yeah, if there's nothing else to really talk about, I guess we can wrap up there then. Um, you
Cool.
mentioned Discord and all that. If you want to, is there any place you want to direct people to? Any links you want people to go to?
I think most specifically, you should probably check out the actual repo.
Mhm.
Right now, it's a little bloated, but it has a little information. It has some goals, some issue tracking, and it has my Discord and my GitHub source codes. Yeah.
Nothing else people should go to?
I also have a website portfolio, aspauldingcode.com, and I have. If anyone's trying to hire, I'm looking for internships. I don't know how if that's even going to be a thing, but feel free to email me or reach out somehow. Any way you can. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's
uh,
it.
my browser just froze. Can you still hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you.
What? You can't hear me?
Oh
What?
no, I can't hear you.
Well, you're responding, so you're probably gonna hear me. What?
Uh-oh.
We good? No? Yes? Oh, hello.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't hear you for a sec.
Okay, sure. I don't know what happened there. Um, we love computers.
Yes, we do.
I was just gonna say, the profile picture you have on your website, maybe a blue
Mhm.
background's not great because it looks like you've like incredibly pale skin, like icy white skin.
Yeah, at some point I need an updated professional photography.
Mhm,
I'm just
mhm.
not there yet.
Fair enough. Fair
This is
enough.
one of the things you go to like a job fair and they're like, "Oh, come take your photo," and then that ends up being your only good photo that you have in your
Right,
camera
right,
roll.
right.
So,
That's understandable.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Hopefully, there's not too much judgment there.
well, you said you wanted to remake the website anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I'll remake it at some point. It's kind of wonky. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so is that pretty much all you want to direct people to? The project, you got the website, you got your Discord.
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, you probably call it Twitter. Um, I'm on there as well with the tag A Spaulding code,
Mhm.
and I do sometimes post there about some new macOS tweaks that I've made or released. If you want to join that and follow there, I don't really do socials, so that's kind of it, really. I'm also on Reddit, but I don't remember my tag, so just let that be. Yeah.
If you want to find any of the
Anyways,
posts he's made, just search macOS compositor, you'll probably find it.
yeah. Well, Wona compositor. Well, Wona.
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
that's how you say it.
It's your own project. You should probably know this.
You know what's great? I searched this up just before.
Oh.
It actually is somewhat of a Native American term for what sound an owl makes. So when we're talking about the owl compositor, now I can't stop thinking about what sound, like I'm almost mimicking it or making fun of the owl compositor. I don't know. Something to keep in mind.
I feel like there's enough degrees of separation there that most people probably have no idea about that connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It could be anything. Just just trying to figure out how to pronounce it is actually kind of hard to Google.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have you on. I hope the project goes well. And yeah, let me know. I'll be lurking around places, but if you want to let me know how the project's going at some point and you get to a, you know, position where it's actually in a good state, I'd
Hmm.
definitely love to chat again.
Yeah, probably within the next 3 years, maybe, or maybe 5 years, or maybe the next 6 months. I have no idea. But it's nice meeting you, and I'm glad I get to be featured here. I watch this channel all the time, so it's great.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and
Appreciate it.
I'm glad to be a guest of your podcast today.
Awesome. Um, yeah. I guess that's where we'll sign off. So I'll do my outro, and unless there's anything else you want to say.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. Sometimes I stream as well. I have not been streaming lately, so I should do that. The gaming channel is Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through Silksong and DMC Devil May Cry. And if you want to find the video version of this, it is on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. The audio version is on basically every podcast platform, Tech Over Tea. Search it. There's an RSS feed. Videos also on Spotify if you like Spotify video podcast for some reason. I don't know why, but it's a feature they have. Yeah, I'll give you the final word. How do you want to sign us off?
Come say hi. Wayland.
Fair enough.
Wayland.
Yeah.